going on, everybody? Welcome back. And today we were talking about two more full-size honeys in the way of the Glock 17 MOS. Right there, that is the Gen 5. And of course, the SIG P320 X Full right there. Both of these are the full-size offerings from their respective manufacturers. And they do have quite a few differences when it comes down to the design and the overall feel out there on the range. Now, the reason we are comparing these two today is because I get a bunch of questions between the Glock 17 Gen 5 MOS and the SIG RXP X full size. Now, SIG has a bunch of different offerings. They have the RX, the RXPs, the X carries, the X5s, the X5 Legions. So this one specifically, so everybody is very clear, is the SIG P320 RXP X full size, just so you guys are sure on that. And of course, that Gen 5 Glock 17 MOS, pretty sure almost everybody out there is familiar with that one. But people have been requesting kind of a comparison video between these two, which I really like doing the comparison video because it does help a lot of people out and it's just flat out fun to do, to compare two of the more kind of widely carried things out there so you guys can get that information that you want and need to kind of make a decision. And speaking of things you want, need, or desire, today's video is brought to you by Big Daddy Unlimited. So if you don't know what BDU is, it's a membership club where you get some pretty sick discounts on things like that Trijicon MRO right there. You pay a monthly subscription fee and you get some pretty sick prices that you probably will not find anywhere else out there online. And the first month is 99 cents, so you get to try it before you really buy it. If you don't dig it, go ahead and move on to the next thing. But a huge thank you to Big Daddy Unlimited for sponsoring today's video. If you're interested in that stuff, I will leave a link down below where you can check that out. Well, let's go ahead and get right into these two bad boys right here. We'll give you the specs, we'll talk about the triggers, the overall design, and then of course we'll go over that range footage, how they perform and how they feel out there, so you guys can get a little bit of a better understanding should you be in the market for one over the other. But before we do that, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel, turn those bell notification icons on, and if at any point you find this video helpful or just entertaining, give that video a like. We're gonna get into both of these things right now. All right, let's go ahead and start out by breaking down the basic specs on these two, and we will start with the Gen 5 17 MOS, and I'm gonna read you from the manufacturer's website right off of there. So in the Glock 17 Gen 5 MOS, okay, it's a 17+1 9mm full size. Their safe action trigger has the 4.49 inch, so basically 4.5 inch barrel. Weighs 22.05 ounces without the magazine and 24.87 with the magazine. You do get 3 magazines with this thing. The overall length of this is going to be 7.95 inches. The slide is 7.32. The width total 1.34 with a 1-inch direct slide width. The height overall from the mag to the top of the slide is going to be 5.47. So overall, you know the basic specs on the Gen 5 17 MOS. Now let's go ahead and talk about the RXP X Full. Definitely feels a little bit bigger in the hand. So this model, the RXP X Full size, comes with two 17 round magazines, and it does come with the SIG Romeo 1 Pro. However, that shield does not come on them anymore. My understanding was that is not going to be with it anymore. So overall length on this bad boy is going to be 8 inches. Overall width is 1.4. The overall height 6.4. Barrel length 4.7. Weight of 30 ounces. Striker fired just like the Glock. Does come with the X-Ray series night sights on there that are tall enough to get a sight picture through the optic. The Glock comes with whichever sights you decide to get on it. A couple things that are a little bit different between the two. You're gonna notice a little bit of a difference in the coating. So the Glock has the DLC coating where the SIG has their Nitron coating. Both are striker fired polymer. I do have a different trigger in the SIG, but I have a stand-in when we get to the triggers. So let's talk about the overall feel of the two, the differences between the two. So the Gen 5, obviously you're gonna get kind of a different texture on there. You can see that, has no finger grooves, does have interchangeable back straps, has a slight magwell that is integrated into the factory frame there. Coming up into there, you can see pretty flat, normal Glock trigger guard as usual, and you have a single section accessory rail up here that is the 1913 or the Picatinny size. You do have ambidextrous slide stop, slide release on the Glock. Typical takedown lever right there, front and rear serrations. You have the MOS system, although this is an aftermarket plate to fit the 509 from Holosun. All Glock typical stuff on the off side here, and that trigger. We'll go ahead and take a good look so you guys have an idea. Okay, typical Glock looking trigger right here. Got a pretty decent amount of take up, and then you have some creep, pretty good amount of creep, and then it finally breaks. You'll have that reset. Okay, that creep and a break. Not the worst trigger out there, but definitely not the best. So let's bring in the RXP X full size here. We can see in this one, I do have the X series magwell on this. It does not come on here. That's why it has the big 21 round mags. This will come with your two 17 rounders. No finger grooves, well, excuse me, a single finger groove up in the front, which actually does a really nice job grabbing your finger and keeping your high grip up in there. Does have an extended beaver tail right there on this grip module. Kind of that sandpaper texture, get you a good look right there. I do like that quite a bit. Single-sided mag release like the Glock, and a double-sided slide stop, slide release, or ambi, just like the Glock as well. Takedown lever, you do have a multi-section pick rail up there. Neither really have any form of reference marks on the frame right there. Moving on to the other side, going to be pretty much mirror of the other side, is a reversible magazine release just like the Glock as well. Then the trigger guard, it is a little bit cleaner around the edges on the bottom right there. At least it does feel like that to me. Moving up into that slide, front and rear serrations. The whole slide is chamfered down quite a bit, so if you're into coming over the top, makes it a little bit easier. Moving up over across the top, you do have the direct milled slide for the Romeo 1 Pro or Delta Point Pro cut on there. Then everything else is pretty much going to be a mirror image here. So being that this one has an aftermarket trigger in it, we're going to bring in a stand-in setup, which is the RXP X carry. I just have the P80 grip module, but it has everything else inside of this is factory. So this does not affect how the trigger works at all. So you will see there is no trigger safety on the SIGs. Most of you are going to know that. Very minimal creep. Okay. There's the wall, and it breaks right there. There's your reset, wall, and a break. So the Glock definitely has a little bit more of a crisp kind of tactile response when it breaks and resets. The SIG definitely has kind of a softer break and a reset overall in the feeling of it. Let's go ahead and we're going to do some pull tests with the factory fire control unit from the X and the factory Glock 17. And we will start with the Glock. We'll do 2 pulls each, just so we don't wear this out. And I do pull a little bit low on the trigger because that's where I pull on the trigger, because the lower you are, the better the trigger break is going to be. If I can get this thing on here. Okay, we'll see right there. Our first break is just over 4.5 pounds, so it'll probably be 4 pounds and close to 10 ounces, which is not bad, although this gun is well broken in at this point and polished out as well. Okay, that one, a little bit lower on that one, but I did pull a little bit lower on the trigger. So that one's gonna be about 4 pounds and 4 ounces. And I'll do one more to kind of show you the higher you get your finger on the trigger, the higher the pull is gonna be. So we'll go up way high on that trigger, and you can see if you do that, it pulls almost at 6 pounds. So that was probably 5 and about 14 ounces. So overall, not terrible. It's really gonna pull out there between 4.5 and 5 on the Gen 7 or the Gen 5 17. Now we'll go ahead and bring in the SIG. Like I said, this is the factory fire control unit in here. Nothing has been changed internally. Okay, you can kind of hear the difference between the two and how they break right there. So we're a tad over 4.5 pounds there, just maybe an ounce. As long as everything looks pretty normal on this one. Make sure that goes all the way. We will go ahead and call it good with 2 pulls. Sorry, started sliding up on that one. You don't get these gauges perfectly straight, they'll slide up. So that one came in a little bit higher, right around 5 pounds, just under. Go ahead, do one more. And we will call it good. Kind of give it an average of 3. So that one pulled slightly over, might have over pulled that, but it is what it is. That's where we're going to end the trigger pull. So let's go ahead and talk about how these feel on the range, how they feel in the hand, the price points, and all that stuff you want to know. Oh yeah, so you can see there are some pretty good differences right there, just sitting next to each other side by side. Now the 320 RXP X full size right here is quickly becoming one of my favorites to use out there on the range, just because of the absolute overall performance of it out there. And it is extremely forgiving. Under that recoil impulse, it just seems to be that I can actually kind of mess up a little bit on those fundamentals and still just be very accurate with it. No, I'm not saying it's a good thing to mess up on the fundamentals. That's just kind of how it's turned out for me. So the SIG RXP X Full does have a little bit better of a feel out there. Ergonomically, it's just a little bit of a cleaner angle for my wrists and for my grip style. Some people may prefer the Glock over the SIG, but for me, that's just what seems to work. And it's just easier to punch out, and I'm a little bit more flat with the SIG right off the bat. Now the trigger compared to the Glock is maybe a little bit better, but it's very close between the two. Tactile wise, they definitely feel quite a bit different, just because the SIG has that overall flat profile trigger, especially on the RXP and the X versions. And like I said, that SIG is extremely forgiving out there on the range, but you will notice a difference in the recoil impulse. So it's not that big of a deal, but you will notice a slightly different feel. Instead of kind of that straight back and maybe a snap, it kind of feels like it bucks or rolls a little bit more. And that has to do with that slight difference in that height over bore. It's nothing that's not controllable. It's nothing that's not normal. It just has a different feeling out there when you're on the range. Now that Gen 5 Glock 17 MOS, it's like ye old faithful, right? We know the reliability, the durability, the functionality of this thing, and the fact that pretty much everybody makes an aftermarket part for it if you want to change anything. It's literally like the Honda Civic of the gun world, and everybody makes an exhaust system for it. Now for me personally, the ergonomics of the Glock are a little bit off, but many people really do like the grip angle, and they are quite accurate with it. Being that it does have a little bit of a lower bore axis, as long as you're holding on to this, you can shoot extremely flat with these things. They are very fast on the range. I've got a ton of rounds through Glocks throughout my lifestyle, and they're just one of those things that I pretty much always go back to, because I know I can always count on that Glock name brand. And really, at the end of the day, these things are just familiar to me. Now that Glock trigger, we all know it is just not the best, and that's probably why there are so many aftermarket manufacturers out there making triggers for them. But the one thing we know about this is that it's gonna work every time, and it's extremely safe. Now, if you wanna rock the stock trigger in there, not a problem at all. Break it in, polish it up, make sure it's lubed, and you can definitely have a good time. If you wanna go with something else, there are a plethora of options for that out there, several of which I've done videos on. You can check all that stuff in the playlist down below. The big positive on the Gen 5 for me was getting rid of those finger grooves, because they just don't work for me. The size of my hands, and just the way it positioned my hands on previous generation of Glocks wasn't my favorite. Now everybody out there is a little bit different. When it comes to performance out on the range, I am definitely a little bit faster with Glocks. However, I find myself being a little bit more accurate and almost as fast with the SIG platform. So that's one of those little things where it is definitely a give and take. Up front, to me, the SIG X definitely has a better feel, but the regular P320 grip modules, I just flat out don't like at all. Now the ergonomics on the SIG are just gonna be a little bit flatter of a profile, whereas the Glock is gonna have a little bit more of a harsh angle. And honestly, when it comes down to the trigger, SIG has a slight edge there. Now when it comes to being proven, reliable, durable, and all that good stuff, and just being very familiar, the Glock is definitely one that we just can't throw to the side without taking a good look at it. Ultimately, if you are looking between these two pistols, you need to do everything you can to get them out on the range, or at least do some dry fire and some presentations in the store to see which one is going to work best for you. Everybody has different ergonomics, everybody has different size hands and different angles that their wrists like to be in. It's never going to be a one size fits all, so you've got to get it in your hand and really feel it out. It's like test driving a car. You've just got to get your butt in the seat and see if it's going to be a match. Now when it comes down to that price, it's really tough to compare, because the Romeo 1 Pro comes on the SIG from the factory right out of the box, and it's direct milled for that optic. So if you want to change over, you have to buy a conversion plate. Now the Gen 5 17 MOS That comes with their modular optic system and a plate, so you can choose your optic and go whichever route you desire. So as far as direct comparing price, you really can't do it because of how they come outfitted. This is just more overall an explanation of how they feel and how they compare as far as the pistols directly, not the optics. And ultimately that decision is up to you. You guys make sure you are subscribed to the channel, turn those bell notification icons on, and definitely give this video a like. If you're looking to support the channel in any way, you can check out Shall Not Comply for the swag over there. They handle all the merchandise for the channel here. Or you can use any of those links down below. Or if you want to be super generous, you can check out that Patreon. Guys, get out there and have some fun on the range. Do some training, even though ammo is tough right now. And remember, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. And I will see you guys on the next one.